Hey, what's up everybody? This is your brother John Shin, and I'm back here in the Situation Room. Today's situation is increasing your leadership ability, your leadership power, your social power, your power in the water quadrant, that socio-sexual type of power. So we're going to go through a long training today where I'm going to teach you to use 4 elements or 4 quadrants model for identity typing a large group of people. I'm probably going to use like these type of Ron Paul, libertarian, like rah-rah patriot type of guys as an example, because I think there's a hilarious disconnect between who they really are and who they think they are. So I think they're a good example. So I'm going to go ahead and start and give you just some preliminary information. I want to talk about the 4 elements model a little bit more, and then we'll get into specifically what we're going to do in this training. So let's get the old whiteboard markers ready. And so we'll start over here, and we want to do just a very quick review of the 4 elements model. So we'll say here we have Earth. This is really your bio-survival circuitry. Then we have water, and this is going to be your socio-sexual circuitry. Then we have fire. This is going to be intellectual, rational circuitry. And then we have air, and this is going to be post-personal circuitry. So a lot of people are really unsure about why I use this model, how I came up with this model or started or began using it. So I'll tell you a little bit about that before we get into the rest of this stuff, because I think it's very useful to actually understand this. One of the benefits of using this 4 elements model is that it's allowed me over the last few years to really absorb a huge amount of information, a huge amount of data, and really sort of categorize that data in a useful way, so that when I want to learn something, or when I want to teach myself something, or when I want to increase my own ability or my own skills in any of these 4 elements or 4 quadrants, I have a very useful model. So I can go in, look at the data, plug the data into the model, and quickly assimilate that, and then begin very quickly practicing and mastering whatever I'm working on. So how did I come up with this model? Earth, water, fire, air, or this 4 quadrants model of human development, human ability, humanity in general, time, because I also use this for time. We've got prehistoric, ancient, modern, and postmodern. So basically what was happening was when I was at my lowest point, maybe in my early 20s, and I had just completely broken down. I had a real psychological breakdown, and I got on a plane to India with less than $50 to my name, one-way ticket. And really the only other option at that time was probably suicide, but I didn't really have the balls or the guts to go ahead and just pop myself, so I went to the furthest place I could go and just sort of set myself up for failure. So I went to India. I had no money, I had no contacts in India, I had no job waiting for me, and I had less than $50 in cash left when I got onto the airplane. So once I got there, I realized quickly after a week of severe hunger that I was going to have to really rebuild myself from the ground up. So I began this process of personal development in each of these 4 quadrants. And the way that I sort of stumbled onto this model was just looking at the greatest teachers, the great sages, the great masters in each of these 4 quadrants. So we can think about these as earth or biosurvival, water or socio-sexual circuitry, fire or intellectual or rational circuitry, or air or post-personal circuitry. I usually just think about this, and when I started out, when I began all of this, the way I was looking at this model was like fighting leadership, strategy, and meditation. So when I made this conscious decision, when this switch flipped in my brain, and I decided, wait a minute, I'm going to fucking starve to death, and things are going to be terrible. I'm never going to improve my situation. I'm going to be feeling this way forever unless I make some immediate changes in my life right now, and unless I get a handle on this stuff. So the first things that came into my mind as like a working class proletarian, like 22-year-old man, fighting, boom. Leadership, boom. Strategy, boom. Meditation, boom. So I didn't have a really clear idea about any of those things at the time. You know, maybe I had seen some Kwai Chang Caine on Kung Fu. Maybe I was interested in fighting. I was actually pretty good at fighting by that point. I had some idea about leadership, and I knew I was going to have to develop my strategic thinking. And I took all of that later and continued developing at higher levels in each of those quadrants or each of those elements. But the way that I came up with this was I really was probably looking at earth or fighting, fire, or intellectual rational power, and air or post-personal power. And I was looking at great masters in those three quadrants. So in the earth quadrant, I was looking at, oops, you can see I haven't improved my spelling much. I was looking at Miyamoto Musashi, this great samurai sage. In the fire or intellectual rational quadrant, I was probably looking at that time mostly at Plato. And in the air or post-personal quadrant, meditation, I was probably looking at that time mostly at the historical Buddha. So what happened is, as I was studying Musashi at a very high level, or deep level, as I was studying Plato at a very deep level, and as I was studying the teachings of the Buddha, rather than what's taught about him, but specifically what he said, I noticed that Musashi was using a four elements model. If you look at the Book of Five Rings, it's earth, water, fire, air, and void. Plato used a four elements model for philosophy and to describe the material world. And also the Buddha was using a four elements model. So I thought to myself, wait a minute, if these guys, these great masters of each of these quadrants are using a four elements model, there's probably something useful there, right? So I decided to really get into this. I looked at it really carefully for really a couple of years until it started clicking. And by the time I really just got it, I had begun to sort of pull a lot of data or aggregate a lot of data into this model. And so I started thinking about, why is this stuff consistent? Why is there a four elements model that's consistently used or employed by masters at different levels of human development? And then I noticed, as I was studying learning and training a little bit more, there are also four levels of development to learning. So you have, the first level is going to be, unconscious incompetence, where you don't know what you don't know. Then you've got conscious incompetence, where you begin realizing what you don't know yet. Then you have conscious competence, where you're able to do the thing well, but you have to think about it very hard, you have to think about it very clearly. Then the highest level is going to be unconscious competence, where if you watch Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee's talking to the young novice, the young student he's teaching Kung Fu, and he says, you don't hit, it hits all by itself. So that's that highest level, that air level of learning, unconscious competence. So I started thinking to myself, why is this model consistently true at each level of development? And what's the source of this model? Where's this model really coming from? So I started looking more at maybe evolutionary development, the development of the human mind, and so on. And I started looking at the human brain itself. So at the first level, you have this brainstem right in the back of your head. This is the stuff that regulates the autonomic nervous system, your breathing, your respiration, blood flow, stuff like that. It also moderates your flight or fight instincts, basically all of those bio-survival processes. So the first really brain that we developed was this reptilian brainstem back here that controlled survival and that regulated survival function. The next brain that we developed was the mammalian cortex, this sort of mammal brain. And this mammal brain really was responsible for socio-sexual development, group dynamics, the interaction between people, between animals at that time probably. You see this in different groups of mammals traveling in herds or packs, whereas other animals don't do that necessarily. And then after that, we get this human neocortex. This is the intellectual, rational circuitry of the human brain. This is what allows us to reason and use logic. Then, this is something that maybe 1% of the population has developed by this point, but in maybe more self-awakened people, really what I would call an arhat, you get this next level of development that's post-personal circuitry, unified vision between all of these brain circuits, and also the realization of unity and non-dualism in existence itself. So we won't talk about that too much, but the source of all of this stuff, the reason why Musashi used this for fighting, the reason why Plato used this for reason, the reason why Buddha talked about a four elements model for meditation is because this is the basic model of brain development that we have gone through up until this point, or that the highest among our species have gone through up until this point. Once you get to this very high level, this post-personal level, this non-dual perception, you get a lot of integration of all four of these levels. So a lot of times people that are at the bio-survival level, they're only thinking at the bio-survival level. People who are at the mammalian midbrain, mammalian cortex level are only thinking at that level, that socio-sexual level. People that are at the rational intellectual level think they're only thinking at the rational intellectual or higher level. Once you get up to the post-personal level, you get integration of all of these brain types, and you get some very dense circuitry up here in the forebrain that ties everything together and allows you to see non-duality between yourself and the universe in which you live. So let's just develop a little bit more clarity about this four elements model. We can think about this in quadrants also. So here we have internal, external, personal, and group. So this is going to be the Earth quadrant: internal personal development, internal personal power. Then you're going to have external personal, external group, internal group, and so on. So I've explained this more in other videos and other trainings, so I'm not going to go into it in a lot of depth here. But what we're going to do is we're going to pull all of this stuff together in this training, and we're going to look at a group of people. And it can be any group that you want to lead more effectively, or you want to establish leadership inside of. And what we're going to do is aggregate that group into a single individual avatar. And then we're going to do some identity mapping on that avatar. So we're going to find out exactly who this aggregate person of the group is, and exactly how they think, how they feel, what their experiences are, and the best ways that you can relate to this person, the best ways that you can speak to this person, the best ways that you can motivate this person to do or not to do something, and how you can use this to really lead a large group of people. So we're going to first aggregate the entire group into one individual avatar, and we're going to talk about how to lead that individual avatar. Then we're going to flip the script, and we're going to disperse that avatar into the group and figure out exactly how we're going to lead our group. So I'm going to go into a screen capture video for the majority of the rest of this training. Below, inside the training, inside the course here at earthwaterfireair.com, there are going to be some PDF worksheets and some other material for you to download so you can go through this with me, so you can do it on your own for the specific group that you want to lead, whether that be in your workplace, whether that be a social group or a nation state, whatever you want to do. We'll just go through all this stuff on a step-by-step basis. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. I'm going to teach you how to do it, and then I'm going to help you do it by yourself. Once you've done it, we're going to discuss how you can use this information, how to use this data to become a more effective leader. So, this is your brother, John Shin. I hope you're going to enjoy this training, and I think you're going to find it extremely useful if you go through it. It's a long process. It takes some work, but I think you'll find that it's extremely valuable. So, I'll see you in just a second. We're going to go to, what was the place Mr. Rogers went to? So trolley came in, boop, boop, and they went to, what was that place? Anybody remember? Not Neverland, not the land of imagination. If you can remember, let me know. Leave me a comment and let me know where trolley took Mr. Rogers and the little kids. So that's where we're going to go. We're going to go into the screencast or the screen capture, and we're going to walk through each of these steps together and figure out how to do identity typing or identity mapping for a large group of people, and then how to use that information to lead that group of people. So, this is your brother John Shin. Once again, let's get into the computer. Boom.